Hello, Henry from Belgium here. Today, I'm looking at LEGO set 6766, Rapid River Village from 1997. It's a large Western Indian set with 343 pieces and 7 minifigures. Everything is laid out here on my table, and I'm about to build this set for the very first time. So, I'm really curious to see what this village looks like once it comes together. Before I begin, I want to make one thing clear. In this review, I use the term Indians because that's the name LEGO themselves used for this theme back in the 90s. Nowadays, we obviously say Native Americans. So I'm using the old label purely in a historical context to stay accurate to the original sets and catalogs. We're looking at the set as it was released at the time. Regular viewers already know this. My goal is to collect every Western set, both the cowboy sub-theme and the Indian side of the lineup. I already own quite a few of the cowboy sets, with Fort Legoredo as the absolute highlight. From the Indian sub-theme, I only have one set so far. This Rapid River Village now becomes my second, and it's actually the flagship set of the entire sub-theme. You can really see it as the counterpart to the fort, a large, fully developed village with its own base plates, structures, and atmosphere. The box artwork immediately appeals to me. I see plenty of great photos of the set, as well as alternative builds you can create with the same pieces. The box really invites you to imagine your own Western world and stories. I always see it as a huge bonus when a set still has its original box, and this one is a really nice example, 47.5 centimeters by 29 centimeters. These boxes are hard to find for a reasonable price, and they've basically become collector's items on their own. The photos printed inside are beautiful as well, including a nighttime scene with strong blue tones. This box is in amazing condition for its age. There is only one downside. The inner tray is missing, and I do find that a bit unfortunate. It would have made this collector's piece truly complete. What I do have with this set is the original Western-themed poster. It's a large fold-out print measuring about 60 by 42 centimeters, showing the whole native village line in one big cinematic scene. LEGO even cataloged this as a separate item back in 1997, so finding it together with the box is not that common anymore. For loose examples in good condition, sellers can easily ask around 20 euros, so this really is a little collector's item on its own. For me, extras like this turn the set and packaging into a complete 1990s time capsule. And of course, I really like having the manual as well. With sets from this era, these booklets have also become proper collector's pieces, often going for 10 euros or more depending on their condition. This one is an A4 booklet with 32 pages, featuring clear illustrations and a calm, uncluttered background. The build is divided into 3 separate sections, which you bring together at the end to form the full village. As I flip through it, I immediately get the feeling that this is going to be a fun and varied build. Lots of small details, different textures, and a nice mix of rock work, village structures, and the 2 teepees. It looks very clear and accessible, but definitely not boring. Before I really get started, I want to show a few of the parts, and what immediately stands out to me is the number of rock panels in this set. There are both the large ones and the smaller versions. People always have strong opinions about these. You either love them or you don't. Over the years, I've actually grown to appreciate them. I've started seeing them more as an advantage than a drawback. If sets like this didn't include rock panels, you simply couldn't create larger structures without exploding the part count. Every single rock shape would have to be built out of small bricks, and that would make the production cost of a set like this far higher. There are also quite a few brown elements in this set. Some of them are very specific parts, like this canoe, It's the same mold as the Islanders canoe, but here it appears in brown. And in that color, you only find it in 2 sets, so that's pretty special. The same goes for this tree 6x6 hollow stump. You only see this part in a handful of sets, and it's one of those pieces that really defines the look of this sub-theme. There are also several ladders, and this piece here, the 1x1x5 brick with a hollow stud. In brown, this element appears in only about 4 sets, so that's another nice little rarity. There are also plenty of basic bricks and plates in black, plus a range of smaller elements and slope bricks in red, yellow, white and green. On top of that, there are a few more specialized pieces in blue. For me, these 2 cloth teepee covers are one of the main reasons to have this set in my collection. They're exclusive to this theme and only appear in 2 or 3 sets, so they're real collectibles. Very similar to how the fabric sails are highly valued in the pirate sets. These ones are in beautiful condition, and that makes a huge difference. If they're dirty or wrinkled, it's perfectly possible to wash them gently and even iron them, but having them look this good straight away is a big bonus. There are 2 tan 16x32 base plates. You also find this color in other lines like divers and adventurers, but they're definitely sought after by collectors as well. They only appear in around 14 sets, and you easily pay about €5 for a good, clean example. And then there's this 32x32 base plate with rocks, a blue river, and green plants printed on it. This one is really special, and definitely one of the highlights of this set and of the whole theme. You only find it in 1 other set, and depending on the condition, sellers ask absolutely crazy prices for it. I basically never buy base plates separately. I'd much rather spend a little bit more on an incomplete set that includes the base plate, because then at least I also get a whole bunch of extra spare parts for the same money. Finally, there are lots of small details, and of course, the minifigures really bring this whole sub-theme to life. They all come with nice accessories and very detailed prints. It's not just the figures themselves I find special, but also the printed horses. And here I even spot a saddle in green, which is a color I don't remember seeing before in my collection. There are 7 minifigures in total, and it's immediately clear that LEGO at this time is putting a remarkable amount of attention into prints, accessories, and variation. This doesn't feel like a row of identical characters, but rather like a small community with clear roles and its own visual identity. The most impressive figure of the group is, of course, Big Chief Rattlesnake. His large, richly decorated headdress is one of the most iconic pieces in this entire line. His torso is very nicely detailed, with fine printed patterns that are quite impressive for a set from 1997. There is even printing on the legs, which is still quite unusual for this period, and really makes the figure stand out even more. Then there's the Medicine Man, who stands out right away thanks to his face paint and distinctive headpiece. There is also Sui, the female figure, whose torso print adds a subtle bit of diversity to the group. On top of that, there are 4 more figures with detailed prints and strong facial expressions. Together, they fill the roles of warriors, hunters, and villagers, each with different combinations of shields, weapons, and headgear. In various sources, some of these characters are referred to by names like Running Bear and Tomahawk, but in the set itself, they simply appear as part of the wider village, without those names being printed anywhere on the packaging or in the manual. What's historically interesting is that this line is often mentioned as one of the first times LEGO experimented with suggesting different facial features. Not by changing skin color, everything remains classic yellow, but through face paint, alternative eyebrow shapes, cheek shading, and a slightly different nose line. For LEGO standards of the late 90s, that was a significant step. At the same time, people now often point out that this sub-theme leans quite heavily on stereotypical representations. Several different real-life cultures are merged into one visual style, very much inspired by the Western movies of the 1950s and 60s. It's good to be aware of that context when looking at these figures today, while still judging the set fairly as a product of 1997. The shields deserve special mention. They're oval, unique to this line, and carry beautiful prints. Small artworks in their own right. They add a huge amount of personality to the minifigures, especially once the whole village comes together on the base plates. And then there are the horses. These are far from standard. They have printed facial markings and colored blankets you almost never see in other sets. The saddles make it even better, especially the green one, a color that is incredibly uncommon and a real highlight for collectors. The set is divided into 3 separate builds. I'm starting with the section that sits on the large base plate with the river pattern. Here, I build the foundation of the teepee, using among other pieces these modified facet 5x5 bricks. In this size, they appear in only 8 sets in total, a few within this sub-theme, and a couple of specific castle sets. These elements that form the frame of the teepee are also quite rare. They are used only as structural pieces for the teepees in this theme and appear in just 3 sets. Together with a few Technic pins and modified 1x1 bricks with a hole, I build up the complete teepee structure. I carefully clip the cloth cover into the holes on the frame. I take my time here because I really want to avoid damage. I don't want the holes to stretch or start tearing. The print on the fabric immediately adds a lot of atmosphere. Patterns, symbols, silhouettes, details you don't really see in any other theme in this way. On older examples, you sometimes notice that the fabric has discolored, gone a bit stiff, or become wrinkled. So being gentle when you put these on and take them off is really important. And if you ever do need to clean them, it's best to use lukewarm water and a lot of patience, so the print stays nice for as long as possible. These are parts I personally really enjoy. It appears in only 4 different sets, and a good clean example easily goes for 4 to 5 euros nowadays. It's not just a great looking piece of scenery, it's also extremely practical. You can hide a minifigure inside, or use it to store weapons and accessories. On top, it has several small pins where you can attach extra elements such as leaves, weapons, or other details. With just this one piece, you add height, story, and play value to the entire landscape. With the minifigures and all the small accessories added, this first section is finished. In terms of building experience, this part is fairly limited. It's mainly about putting together the teepee, some surrounding vegetation, and a few camp details such as the ladder and the campfire. Visually though, it looks really good, and the play value is very high. All the little details are well chosen, and thanks to the specific baseplate, the special parts, and the minifigures, this feels like a very satisfying first section of the build. And this is only the beginning. The real construction work is still to come in the next parts. And now the second part of the set. This section is a combination of a rock formation with a second teepee, built on an unprinted tan 16x32 baseplate. The building experience here is already a bit more involved, but still fairly limited. It's fun to work on though. I always enjoy puzzling with smaller elements. What I also really appreciate is the use of different colors and accents without turning it into a messy mix. The touches of green, red, and yellow fit this theme very well. It's not just brown, gray, and black, and that makes it feel noticeably different from a typical cowboy set. In essence, this becomes a kind of watchtower, and a big plus is that there's a ladder included to reach the upper level. The rest of the baseplate is filled with a second teepee. The structure is identical to the first one, the same foundation and the same building technique, but the fabric is completely different. And honestly, this is the more beautiful of the two. It also happens to be the more valuable variant. The other fabric version is also sought after, but it also appears in the smaller set chief's teepee, which is still relatively easy to find. This variant only appears also in the extremely hard to find 6748 Boulder Cliff Canyon, the second largest set of this sub-theme. Clean examples of this specific fabric can sometimes sell for €30 or more. Even damaged or heavily soiled ones still fetch around €15, which says a lot about how rare this teepee fabric has become. I really like the final result. It looks bright and colorful, but for me, it's still missing that little extra touch. It feels like there could have been one more play feature or some kind of booby trap here. The small campfire is a nice detail, but between the teepee and the tower, there is quite a lot of empty space. There would have been room for a small additional build, a dedicated area for the horses, or simply some extra vegetation or rock work. Finally, the third and last part of the set, and in my opinion, this is going to be the best and most challenging section. From the manual, I can already see that this part uses a lot of bricks and plates, rock panels, specialized shapes, and all kinds of small details. I also notice a few booby traps and fun play features, so this is a part of the build you can really sit down and enjoy. LEGO has planned this very well. This set is a complete experience. It starts with the box, the manual, and the poster. Then you discover the minifigures and the horses. And after that, you build the set itself from something simple into something more elaborate, ending with this final section. As always, the light old gray bricks feel a bit more special than the other colors, but apart from that, I don't see many pieces that are truly valuable on their own. However, I do notice a few parts that appear in a specific color in only a limited number of sets. A good example is this Slope 10 6x8. This piece is commonly used in other colors as a roof for small shops or huts, but in blue you only find it in a handful of sets. And what I really like is that the color actually has a purpose here. It's used to represent a water section. It's a simple idea, but very clever. Here is a plate and an extra plate with a hinge added, which works as a fun little play element. There are quite a lot of pieces used in this part of the build, and the balance between the rock panels and the smaller elements is really good. It genuinely feels like I'm building and puzzling, not just assembling. What is also very well designed in this section are the booby traps. They add a huge amount of extra play value and immediately invite you to imagine cool adventures. The mechanism used here is something I recognize from castle sets, but most of all from Fort Legoredo. By combining a few bricks and plates with a turntable plate and placing that underneath a modified plate with a trapdoor, you get a very efficient system. And in this build, there are two of them, one above the cave and one above the water section. This will be dressed up further in the next steps, but I can already show how it works. With just a small twist, you can drop a minifigure straight into the cave or into the water. It's also great to see that there are ladders here to reach the different compartments. And even though the structure is quite blocky and rugged, there is still a lot of decoration worked into it. One example is this colorful totem pole. It reminds me a little of the statues from the Islander sets, but this one still has enough of its own identity to fit perfectly within this theme. It brings a lot of color into the build without ever feeling overwhelming. The set also includes two snakes, with one placed here on the booby trap. There's also a small fire element next to it, which you can move around as part of the scene. Another nice play feature in this section is that you can drop logs into the water using this leaf element. That way, you can take out the minifigures below. It's a simple idea, but it really helps to create extra scenes and stories while you're playing with the set. As I suspected, this third section is really the part that makes the whole set more than worth it. It's packed with play features and decoration. On this side, you can actually play inside the cave, hiding treasures and minifigures. I also genuinely enjoyed the building experience. The building techniques, the nice selection of parts, and the clever play features. It's only when you connect all 3 sections that you really see the full size of the set. LEGO clearly put thought into how everything fits together. The water area flows seamlessly into the printed water on the baseplate. The first section can technically be placed wherever you like. But for me, this position makes the most sense. It places the 2 teepees nicely side by side, and at the back you can easily attach another set, allowing you to build a much larger Western village. The set is packed with play features: booby traps, hiding spots, elevation changes, ladders, the cave, and the water area. And that makes this feel like a real village to play in, not just a backdrop. From a collector's point of view, this is an important set. Rapid River Village was relatively expensive per piece back in 1997, and a large part of the budget clearly went into the elements that make it desirable today. The teepees, the large rock panels, the hollow stumps, the special baseplate, the printed pieces, the accessories, and the minifigures. Those are exactly the things that now determine the value of a complete copy. And the fact that LEGO later re-released this set as a Legends model under a different number says enough. You don't bring back a random playset. You bring back a reference point for the entire sub-theme. Of course, there are areas that could have been filled in a bit more, with an extra small build or an additional unique accessory. But as a whole, this set works extremely well, and above all, it has its own character. I'm really glad I finally got to build it and share it with you today. It absolutely deserves a great spot in my collection. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like. And if you want to stay updated about my future reviews and my latest finds, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.